Welcome to Lesson 7 in Module 3, Leveraging the Facebook Toolset. Today we'll be talking all about measuring performance. I've put such a heavy emphasis on trying to isolate the variables inside of the way you structure your campaigns so that when we got here to the measuring performance lesson, we can identify with pinpoint accuracy exactly what's to blame or what's to give credit to for our campaign's performance. In order to do that, we need to understand the different metrics that Facebook shows us that represent the effectiveness of our ads. I want to familiarize you with the term that I'm going to be using throughout this lesson, and that's KPI, or Key Performance Indicators. Key Performance Indicators are ultimately the numbers that we look at that tell us whether our ad is a winner or if it's a loser. Now, it's important to note right off the bat that the key performance indicators for your specific business are going to be different than what they are for other people. If you're selling luxury retail goods and you have 3,000% margins, you can afford to spend a lot more per conversion than somebody who's trying to sell a t-shirt and only makes $3 or $4 per sale. The reason I put such an importance on this right off the bat is because sometimes people will come and ask me, hey, I'm getting opt-ins for $3, or I'm getting webinar registrations for $20, or I'm getting sales for $35. Is that a good number for me? Well, it's really impossible for me to tell you what the metric that you're shooting for needs to be, because that's intrinsically tied to your value per client. If your value per client is 6 figures, then you can spend a lot on Facebook ads to get one client. However, if you have razor thin margins, then your key performance indicators are going to look totally different. What I want to do now is walk you through the key performance indicators that everybody should pay attention to, regardless of what business you're in. The first thing to familiarize yourself with is the term impressions. Impressions is simply the number of times your ad has appeared on somebody's screen. If you're in the audience network, it's the number of times it showed up in somebody's app. If you're in the mobile newsfeed, it's the number of times it showed up on someone's tablet or phone. If you're in the desktop newsfeed, it's the number of times your ad was on a desktop screen. The next term here is clicks. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's simply the number of times that your ad has been clicked. It's really important to know, and we'll look at this when we get inside of Ads Manager here in just a second, but there are two different types of clicks. There are all clicks and there are link clicks. All clicks shows any time somebody clicked or interacted with your ad. As you know, if you've seen a Facebook ad before, you can click on the page name, you can click like, you can click comment, you can click lots of different places on that ad. You can also click in the ad itself and get to the actual landing page or whatever destination there is. But it's very important to look at the difference between all clicks and link clicks. If somebody didn't click the link or didn't actually arrive on your page, you have not pixeled that person. They also have not yet seen your landing page. That means that you cannot retarget them and they probably haven't seen your offer. If they did click to your landing page, that click has a lot higher value. It means that they took further action as a result of your ad, and it means that they interacted with your page, and it means that you were able to pixel that person and can retarget them later if they don't convert. The next indicator here is CTR, or click-through rate. Click-through rate is basically an inferred number that divides the total number of impressions by the number of clicks. It shows on a percentage basis the number of people that see your ad versus the ones who take action and click. The next performance indicator is CPM, or cost per 1,000 impressions. This can vary widely based on your targeting options and how good of a job you're doing at connecting with your audience. But ultimately, all it's telling us is how much Facebook is charging us to put our ad in front of 1,000 screens. The next metric we'll look at is results. Results are based on your campaign objective, so they could be different based on the objective that you've chosen. For instance, if you run a clicks to website campaign, your results column is showing you your clicks, whereas if you ran a conversion campaign, your results column would be showing the total number of conversions for that ad. Another metric to note is CPR, or cost per result. Now again, this is dependent on your campaign objective, but this is showing you how much you're spending to get whatever result it is that you're after. If you're after conversions, it's your cost per conversion. If you're after clicks, it's cost per click. If you're after likes, it's cost per like. Whatever your campaign objective is going to appear inside of the results column. The CPR is your cost per result, whatever that objective may be. So we've just covered the key performance indicators that everybody needs to know. Here are some additional key performance indicators that aren't so important but also are good to know. The first one we're going to talk about is called frequency. Frequency is the number of times your ad has been displayed to people inside of your audience. This sounds pretty straightforward, but it's not quite as intuitive as it sounds. Remember that when we choose a campaign objective, Facebook is optimizing our ad set for whatever objective it is that we chose. This means that with a conversion campaign, we'll be displaying to less than our total number of people in our audience. Just for sake of easy numbers, let's say that we had an audience of 100,000 people that we were targeting. Now our total number of impressions and our frequency could be totally different things. If our campaign is optimized for conversions, Facebook is choosing a group of that 100,000 people that they feel are likely to convert. So what will happen is you'll look at your total reach, the total number of people that you've reached, and your frequency, and those two numbers will be different. What that means is that your ad is being shown more than one time to people inside your audience, and that's what frequency measures. Frequency is showing you how many times the people that you're actually sending to based on your campaign objective have seen your ad. So if your frequency score is 2, that means of the people you're delivering to, the average person has seen it 2 times. If your frequency score is 4, that means the average person has seen it 4 times. It's really important to keep an eye on your frequency, because if your frequency gets too high, one of two different things can happen. First of all, people can start reacting negatively to your ad, and this will impact how much you're paying to reach future people. There's a particular advertiser that's at the top of my newsfeed every single day. After seeing it week after week after week, I ended up clicking that little arrow button and I said, hide all ads from this advertiser. I finally got so fed up, I said I don't want to see him anymore, and he's lost me as a potential customer. Every time that happens, Facebook is going to take note of it, and these negative interactions are going to affect our potential to reach people in the future. We'll get into that further when we get to relevance later on. A good rule of thumb is don't run your frequency over 4. If your frequency gets over 4, it would probably be better to just duplicate that ad set and run it again. The other reason that frequency can hurt us is that Facebook will actually start charging us more per 1,000 impressions if our frequency gets too high. Remember, Facebook puts a very high priority on the user experience. So if they feel that you're inundating somebody with your advertising, even if that person hasn't interacted negatively with your ads, Facebook can charge you a premium because that has the potential to impact the user experience. The next performance indicator is reactions. Now, in the past, the only reaction that Facebook allowed people to give was a thumbs up or a like. Now there are all sorts of reactions. People can give you a like, a love, a haha, a wow, a sad, and an angry. Generally, when people are reacting to your content, that means that you're engaging with. As people react more and more with your ad, Facebook is going to do two things. First of all, they're going to change your relevance score, which we'll get to here in a little bit. The second thing they're going to do is they're going to actually change how much they're costing you to get in front of their audience. If people have a lot of positive interaction with your content, Facebook's not going to charge you as much for that traffic. This is why it's so important to have this message to market match when we can really understand who our target client is and we can write content and give offers to those people that really jive with who they are, then our reactions and by extension our costs are going to improve. Another thing to take note of is something that Facebook calls website actions. If you're running some sort of conversion campaign and you have your conversion pixel or some sort of standard event on a thank you page, this is obviously for us indicating a conversion. Well, when that happens, Facebook is going to pixel that person. Website actions will very closely mirror whatever our results are. This means that if you have a campaign that has 65 conversions, you should see 65 website actions. Website actions is also where you're going to look at how much money you're making from your ads if you're actually selling something with Facebook. You can remember in our pixel lesson, I showed you how to attribute a value to a conversion. If you're selling a product that's $10 and you have a standard event sale pixel on your thank you page once somebody buys your $10 product, they are going to attribute that dollar amount and show it in your website actions. Here's how much money you made with your ads. Now, another thing to know is relevance. Relevance is a scale between 1 and 10 that measures how your audience is interacting with your content. There are a few really important things to know about relevance. Relevance does impact your cost per 1,000 impressions or your CPM. It's also very closely tied to what your click-through rate is. This means that if you're able to get a higher than average click-through rate, Facebook is going to attribute that to the fact that people like your advertisement. When this happens, your relevance score will go up and your cost per 1,000 impressions will go down. Now, our cost per 1,000 impressions starts off on a static level based on whatever audience targeting features we've chosen. We talked about in our audience lesson the fact that when you layer more and more audience targeting features on top of one another, that can impact your CPM. Once you've identified your audience, Facebook establishes a starting point of how much they're going to cost you to get in front of that audience. However, that cost per 1,000 impressions is dynamic. It will constantly change based on how people react to your ad. If Facebook looks at your reaction as generally positive and they see that your click-through rate is generally higher, your relevance score will go up and your cost per 1,000 impressions will go down. This is another reason why it's so important to make sure that you're speaking the language of your target audience. This is why I put such an emphasis on this in Module 1. When you can do a really good job of understanding exactly who your target client is, reaching that person through great targeting, and then giving them offers and content that they really want to engage with, the results that you're going to get inside of your ads are going to be dramatically better than somebody who didn't go through the hard work that we went through in Module 1. Another thing that will influence both your relevance and your cost per 1,000 impressions is interaction. Interaction is a lot broader than reactions. It's reactions, it's comments, it's shares, it's likes, it's comments, and it's clicks. The more interactions you get, generally the lower your cost per thousand impressions will get. Now, I don't know how accurate this is because I don't have any insight into what Facebook's algorithm actually does. But based on my experience, I see roughly a 5% reduction in cost per thousand impressions per positive reaction. In our campaign structure lesson, I showed you two different conversion campaigns, broad to narrow or narrow to broad. In that lesson, I showed you how you can start with a broad audience and get narrower on it based on looking at insight after you've already run an ad. Facebook actually gives you the ability to learn who is responding to your ads, and they do this in three main categories. The first is performance. Performance is basically a chart that's going to show your results over a time, and they'll lay it out on a graph for you. You can hover over different portions of that graph and it'll show you performance by day. The second thing you can learn about who's responding to your ads is demographics. In the Demographics tab in Ads Manager, you'll be able to see the gender and age for both your reach and your results. This allows us to do some really critical analysis of who inside our audience is really responding to our ads. If we see that mostly men are responding to our ads, it may be better for us to start a new ad set that's only for men. This is going to conserve the amount per conversion that we spend because we already know that those people are more reactive to our content. On the other hand, if we see that we have a very broad age selection, but all of our clicks and our conversions are coming from one specific group of people, that's another opportunity to get hyper granular with our targeting the next time we go back to that audience. The third tab we have inside of the Ads Manager is placement. Placement is simply going to show us the results based on each placement that we've selected. If you have all placements selected, which I hope you don't, you'll be able to see in general terms where your results are coming from. Are they coming from desktop? Are they coming from mobile? Are they coming from the audience network? Are they coming from right column? These are really important tools to dive into once you've started running ads, because if you've started with a broader audience targeting, it'll allow you to get more narrow. And of course, the narrower we get, the less money we're spending on people who don't convert, which means that our cost per lead can get better. Now what I'd like to do now is break away from the presentation and actually take you into a live campaign I'm running right now, and I'll show you how to do some critical analysis based on what you're seeing inside of Ads Manager. Now as you can see inside of Ads Manager, I'm looking at the campaign level. This is a conversion campaign, so everything you see inside of this results column is an actual conversion that I've gotten. This particular campaign is inviting people in a local market to a free financial planning workshop. Now, most people in our business are still using direct mail to get people to show up to their workshops. They're used to spending on average $6,000 on one mailing campaign, get roughly a 1% response rate from that. This means that the cost per person at the live event is roughly $100 per person. Now, a very cursory look will show you that we're beating that $100 metric pretty substantially. Our cost per conversion here is about $6.19, and we've only spent $488 to get these 79 conversions. But what I want to do is click inside of this campaign and show you at the ad level some additional insight that we can get into the various ads. The first thing I want to show you is what we see in this performance tab. As you can see, we see our results over time appearing on this graph. The top part of the graph shows our total conversions and the bottom shows the amount that we're spending. As you hover over each one of these sections here, as you hover over this graph, you'll actually be able to see on a daily basis your conversions and costs for conversions on that specific day. Now I'm going to click on the Demographics tab so we can learn a little bit more about the people who are responding. In this particular campaign, I'm only targeting people between ages 55 and 64, so 100% of our results fall inside of that age block. But there are a few really important things you can get from this data. First of all, you can see a basic ratio of impressions versus conversions. The blue line represents our conversions and the green line represents our reach. In this particular example, 16% of our results are coming from men, but men represent 28% of our reach. Conversely, women represent 71% of our reach, but 84% of our conversions. Now in this particular campaign, it's not really feasible for me to only market to women. However, if that was a luxury that was afforded to you inside of your personal business, it would make a lot of sense to pull all of these ads down and relaunch them only to women because we know that they're much more likely to convert. And a way to illustrate this is to look at the ratio between reach and conversions by gender. Now, if both women and men were equally likely to respond to this ad, you would see even numbers on both sides of the screen. If 28% of the audience were men, then we should see 28% of the results from it. However, we don't. We only see 16% of our results from 28% of our people. Women, on the other hand, even though they represent only 71% of our reach, they represent a disproportionately high number of conversions at 84%. Now the good news in this particular example is that I'm not spending a lot of money to reach men. Only 28% of the ads that I've sent have gone to them, and they have resulted in 16% of my conversions. But I'm also learning that women are much more likely to respond even though they already represent a larger group of my audience. Now the third tab you can click on here is placement. In this campaign, I'm only displaying on Facebook, and they're not differentiating the difference between desktop and mobile conversions and reach. So all I can see is that all of my results, both my reach and my conversions, are coming from Facebook. If I did have Audience Network or Instagram on here, it would show my results based on placement type. Now the next thing I want to examine is show you a little bit of insight into the campaign structure that I have here. As you can see, based on my naming convention, I have 2 mobile ads and 2 desktop ads. I also have 2 different images. I'm running each one of these images on both placement types, both on mobile and on desktop. So in simplistic terms, image 1 on mobile and on desktop, image 2 on mobile and on desktop. And that's what you're seeing here below. Now the first column that we see here is results. Because this is a conversion campaign, this is the number of conversions that I'm getting by ad set. This first ad set has gotten 14 conversions, the second 30, the third 20, and the fourth has gotten 15 for a total of 79. Now keep in mind that if you're running a clicks to website campaign, your results column is not going to show you conversions, it's going to show you clicks because that's the objective of your campaign. So the result for that objective is a click. And the same thing goes for other campaign objectives. The next column I see is reach. Of course, if you hover over this, Facebook will give you a little preview of what you're looking at, the number of people your ads was shown to. In this particular example, this ad has been shown to 9,900 people. And we talked extensively about frequency, but here's where you'll see it. My frequency is around 1.5, meaning that of the people inside my audience that my ads have been displayed to, they're seeing it an average of 1.5 times at this point. The next column that we can see here is cost per conversion or cost per result. Now this is what everybody cares about. How much are we actually spending to get leads, or in this situation, how much are we spending to get people to make reservations to come to our live event? You can see that the placement type and the image is having an impact on our cost. Rows 1 and 4 are the exact same image, but as you can see, the desktop version of this is performing much better. We're getting conversions for $6.19 with this image on desktop, but on mobile, we're getting conversions for $8.91. The same goes for the second image. On mobile, we're getting conversions for $4.15. However, on desktop, it's costing us almost twice as much, $8.19. This is a perfect example of how isolation is very, very important. If I had simply run desktop and mobile for image 1 and desktop and mobile for image 2 in 2 separate ad sets, I could see generally how each image was performing. But now I know that certain images are not performing the same on desktop versus mobile. Image 2 costs us less on desktop, but image 1 costs us a lot less on mobile. Now I'm very pleased with the results of this campaign. Our average cost per conversion is only $6.28. Compared to the $100 most people are paying, this campaign is a home run. However, if I saw that my placement and image combination for one of these was way out of whack and it was costing me $30 where the rest were around $10, that's where being able to isolate different elements of the campaign and how they affect our performance is so important. If that were to be the case, with a single click of the button, I could turn that particular ad set off and I could scale up my other ads so I know I'm only spending money on my highest performing ad sets. The other columns here simply represent the daily budget and the total amount spent for my ads. I'm not using campaign scheduling, so this column isn't really a factor. As you scroll over, you will get more insight. We mentioned a little while ago that there's 2 different types of clicks that are measured inside here. Here are all clicks, and over here you see link clicks. There's a pretty substantial difference between the two, 452 for link clicks and 970 for total clicks. It's very apparent to me that people are interacting with this ad. They're probably clicking to go to my Facebook page, they may be clicking comment or like or share, so I'm seeing a lot of clicks. However, when I look at my click-through rate, I really want to look at the click-through rate based on link clicks. Now remember, our click-through rate is a division of our total impressions by our clicks. So as you can see, my click-through rate is 3.23% all the way to 2.08% depending on which ad and how it's performing. When I look at my click-through rate based on total clicks, it's much different. You see as high as 10% and as low as 2.4%. We also see our total impressions, which is 15,365, and it's important to contrast that with our reach. You see that our reach is 9,900 people. Those are individuals. However, we know that we've actually been displayed 15,000 times. If you divide those two numbers, you see the frequency of 1.5. Even though I'm not bidding or optimized for link clicks, they're also going to show me my cost per click, both for link clicks and also over here for total clicks. It's important to know that Facebook gives you different ways to view this data. As you can see, I've selected the performance and clicks view, but by default, you're going to see this default performance view. The default performance view is just kind of a 100,000 foot look at how your ad is performing, whereas when you go into performance and clicks, you'll see a lot more data. Now I mentioned that our relevance score is going to impact our cost per 1,000 impressions, and I want to illustrate that for you. First of all, I'm going to go back to our performance and clicks view. In this view, we can see our CPM, or our cost per 1,000 impressions. Again, it varies based on ad set, but our average CPM is $32. Now what you're going to see about CPM is that it almost identically mirrors our click-through rate. As you can see, the ad with the best click-through rate at 3.83% has a CPM of $33. The one with the worst click-through rate at 2% has a cost per thousand impressions of $34. Now our relevance score for each ad is not going to appear in this view. We're going to have to click one more level down in order to see that. So what I've done is I've clicked on our highest performing ad so that we can see what our relevance score is. To do that, I'm going to go back to the default view, and you can see the relevance score on this ad is 8. As a general rule of thumb, anything over 5 is pretty good. But I want to caution you to not read too far in this. If you're getting really good results and really good sales and really good conversions and your relevance score is low, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you have bad reactions, that is a bad thing. However, if all that's bad is your relevance score, that just means your click-through rate is lower and you're going to get charged more for your ads. But just to illustrate it, let's go back and look what our relevance score is on one of our lesser performing ads. So to illustrate this point, I'm going to click on this ad set that has only 15 conversions as opposed to the one with 30 that we just looked at. Rather than seeing an 8 relevance score, we see a 5 relevance score. The relevance score is derived primarily based on the positive interaction we've had and our click-through rate, which in this particular ad is lower, and it also impacts our cost per thousand impressions, which we saw on the other screen was higher. Now in general, this campaign is kicking butt. I'm getting conversions for about 5% of what my competitors are paying. So in this particular example, I'm not going to change a thing. We're going to hit our total number of registrations, we're going to shut this campaign off, and we're going to call it a success. However, by structuring the campaign the way I have, it would be very simple to, with pinpoint accuracy, in a few seconds tell which ads were underperforming and why, shut those ads off, and scale up the ads that were working really, really well. I hope this serves as a really good example to you why isolation is such an important part of campaign structure, and how we can make intelligent decisions based on that campaign's performance. We're going to wrap up this lesson talking about spotting the problem or the hero. If your ad's performing well, you've got a hero, but you need to figure out why. Or if your ad has a problem, we also need to figure out why. Now again, click-through rate is showing us the number of people that click divided by the number of people that see it. If you're getting a really good click-through rate, that means you've probably chosen a really good image and written good supporting copy. The image is going to get people to stop and actually look at it. The copy is going to get them to read it and ultimately make a decision to click. If those two things are working, then you'll have a good click-through rate. Now, if you had two different ads that had the same copy but two different images, you could automatically spot the winning image and the losing image. Conversely, if you had the same image with two different bits of copy and still saw a difference in click-through rate, that means that one ad's copy is better than the other. By running those two tests, you could get an image and copy combination that would be a winner for sure. The next thing is CPM or relevance. Now these two are inseparably intertwined, but ultimately they're going to show how your audience is reacting. If your audience is reacting negatively, your relevance score is going to be low because your click-through rate is low and your cost per thousand impressions is going to be high. But ultimately this comes back to how people are receiving your offer. The next thing to look at here is cost per conversion. This is showing the effectiveness of your landing page. It's really important throughout all this talk about Facebook metrics that we also talk about your page metrics. If your click-through rate was fantastic but you weren't getting very many leads, chances are your landing page has a problem and not your ads. It's really important to consider the whole picture when we're talking about measuring performance, because if you saw a low number of conversions and automatically thought that your ad sucked and you turned it off, you could be missing out on a gold mine. Maybe all it takes is redesigning your landing page, making your offer a little bit more prominent. Going back to the things we talked about in Module 2 to make your landing page kick butt. It could be that with a few simple changes that have nothing to do with Facebook, you could ultimately get a much lower cost per conversion within Facebook. So here's the million-dollar question. What do we do when we spot a problem? The first thing we have to do is keep testing. In Lesson 10, we're going to be talking all about testing and scaling. We already have a basic idea of how to isolate different factors and produce a test. But if those test results don't come back the way we want them to, we have to go back to the drawing, examine the different factors that we've isolated, learn from it, and keep on testing. The other thing we have to do is address the variables that we control. We control our image, our copy, our audience, and our landing page. Based on your key performance indicators, you can make really intelligent decisions about addressing these various variables. Finally, decide whether your ROI warrants you to continue spending on these ads or not. If you have a very high value per client, your key performance indicators could look like crap on Facebook, but it could be a money campaign for you depending on what your business looks like. This isn't a question that I can answer for you. This is going to be different for every single person. But based on what you know about your margins and what a lead is worth to you, you need to decide whether the campaign and the ads that you're running are helping you meet your objective, whether your ROI is high enough to continue doing it or not. I hope after this lesson you understand a lot more about the key performance indicators that affect our ad campaigns. I hope that you understand why isolation is so important and how it helps us really spot problems and where we're doing really well inside of our campaigns. I also hope you have a better understanding of how to use the Ads Manager to accomplish a lot of this data mining that we did.